Hey gang, Mr. Fitz here. I want to give you a little flipped classroom lesson on the Renaissance. All right. So take a look at this introduction here. Toward the end of the Middle Ages, a great flowering of culture called the Renaissance began in Italy and spread throughout Europe. In this chapter, you will learn what the Renaissance was and how it began. We said in class that the word Renaissance means rebirth. The Renaissance got its name from a rebirth in interest in classical art and learning that took place from the 1300s to the 1500s. And what does classical mean? Classical refers to the cultures of ancient Greek and Rome. Although there was no sudden break with the Middle Ages, the Renaissance changed many aspects of people's lives over time. Okay? By the late Middle Ages, changes were occurring that helped pave the way for the Renaissance. Trade and commerce increased, and cities grew larger and wealthier. Newly wealthy merchants and bankers supported the growth of the arts and learning. A renewed interest in classical culture started a flood of new ideas. Greek and Roman examples inspired new styles of architecture, new approaches to the art, and new ways of thinking. We're going to start now by taking a look at that term humanism. Humanism kind of defines the whole bit. But before we get to that, you see this flower, this plant on the left? Let's zoom into that. All right. I really like this illustration. You take a look down the bottom. You say the soil is all of Europe. And you have your roots all the way down there. That's where we started this year. All right? Down in here. This is Greece and Rome. And then we get up into the Middle Ages, okay? Medieval times. And then as it breaks the soil, we get the Renaissance. And in order for the Renaissance to take place, we need a few things to happen. We need travel. We need commerce. We also need the growth of city-states, because this is where people are going to go to learn these things. This is where it's all going to happen. All right, and that's the seeds or the fertilizer that people are kind of throwing in there with the plant. All right, and then we need the sun. The sun is this humanistic idea, humanism. Now, if we combine all those things, we know that if we combine water, food, and sun, the plant is going to grow and it's going to flower. And what are the flowers on this plant? Art and learning. Now, let's go take a look at humanism. Okay, so what is humanism? All right. Can you see a word inside of humanism? That word right there, human. The idea started in the Renaissance that people have value, people have worth. In the Middle Ages, only God can do good, but in the Renaissance, actual humans can do good. There's more of a belief in the human and what they are capable of doing, their ideas, their values, everything that they are about. This is kind of where we get our liberal arts education. You can go to college and get a liberal arts degree, which we still have today. More about humanism. It's a system of thought and action concerned with human interests and values. It was the dominant movement of the Renaissance. Humans were believed to have dignity and intelligence. We can change the world and make it a better place for all. All right, I'm going to kind of show you what happened during this time period with this idea of humanism, with this idea of re-exploring the classics of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. All right, now remember, Europe just hit rock bottom with the Black Death. So now from the Black Death is going to rise a beautiful culture and civilization known as the Renaissance, the rebirth. All right, let's take this word, patron. Let's say that I am a patron. What does that mean? It means, first and foremost, that I probably have some money, and I'm looking to spend it. Now, you don't just go down to the local art shop and buy art. You actually hire an artist to go ahead and create something for you. All right, so let's say I get, an artist to create a sculpture for me. I pay him. He lives under my roof probably. He creates this piece of art and it goes in my garden or it goes in the front of my place of work. I hire another artist, okay, and this person comes in and does a painting on my wall. All right, I hire another artist and this person comes in and does another painting for where I work. Now, what does this show? Well, when people come to where I live and come to where I work, they see that I have power and prestige. Okay? So now, during this time period, who served this role? Well, one of the big patrons of this time period was the Medici family. All right? There was the father, Giovanni. He was the first. After him, his son, Cosimo. And after Cosimo, Lorenzo. And then others. Some even became pope. Now, who did the Medici hire as patrons? Well, Giovanni and Cosimo hired Brunelleschi to create the dome on top of the Il Duomo in Florence. They hired Sandro Botticelli. They hired Michelangelo. They also hired the man, Leonardo da Vinci. Let's take some time to explore these fantastic people. All right, first, let's take a look at Filippo Brunelleschi. As you can see here, this is the Il Duomo in Florence, Italy. And as you can see here, there is no dome on this building, all right? Because the original builders had miscalculated when they were building it and could not finish it. So it sat for 100 years. So the Medici thought, wow, let's finish this. So they found this guy, Brunelleschi, in the streets. He's like a mad genius, not a guy you'd really want to hang out with, but very, very smart, all right? But he really angered a lot of people. Well, Cosimo took him under his wing and believed him. So by the end, here's what we have. And it still stands today. How remarkable is that? Now, another thing Filippo Brunelleschi did was he created linear perspective. You learned this in art class this year. How when you make an image, you can show that it has depth. All right, let's take a look at this. This is a bronze statue of a male nude that was done by Donatello. This was done for Cosimo de' Medici. Donatello had quite a temper and would often just shatter and break his work before it was even finished. All right. Here we have a guy by the name of Sandro Botticelli. Sandro Botticelli kind of pushed the limits a bit. He was patronized by Lorenzo de' Medici. Here he created La Primavera. La Primavera is the spring, the coming of spring. This next painting by Botticelli is called The Birth of Venus. Again, a focus on the gods and goddesses from ancient Rome. Here we have a young Leonardo da Vinci. This guy started to compete with Botticelli for patronage from the Medici. In this picture here, this was done by a lot of artists. It's called The Birth of Jesus. I'm sorry, the Baptism of Jesus. And he is responsible for this angel right here. And Lorenzo could see right away that there was something special. We know that he's going to go on to paint the Last Supper and also become very interested in the human body. He started dissecting human cadavers so that we could learn about the human body for things like surgery, and that is still done today. He also took an interest in flight and drew a lot of sketches of different machines that could possibly fly one day. But we know his most famous piece of work is the Mona Lisa. Here's a guy by the name of Michelangelo. Michelangelo, when he was a young boy, was taken in by the Medici to live with them. He grew up under their roof and created many works of art, including the David. Now, this David was created after the Medici were kicked out of power and was seen as kind of the guardian of Florence, kind of against the Medici family. He also had to eventually paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, something that's pretty amazing. I think it took him about 4 years to do, lying on his back. Here's a close-up of the Sistine Chapel, the ceiling. You can take a look here at some of the intricate details that Michelangelo did It's pretty remarkable, although he was pretty miserable in doing it and didn't really even see himself as a painter. Now, this is a piece of art that was done by Raphael. It's called the School of Athens. It's pretty cool. It has all of the famous people, many of the famous people that we've studied this year. Now, you can pause for a second and see if you can guess who some of them are, some of the people from ancient Greece and some of the people from the Renaissance. But let's take a look here. I'm going to move to the next slide. It's going to tell us who some of these guys are. All right, I know this can be hard to read. You can actually find it on Wikipedia, but you take a look at 14 and 15, those two right in the middle. Okay, and it's believed that number 14 is Plato and 15 is Aristotle. We look and it is believed that number 12, we find number 12 right up here. Okay, number 12 is Socrates. Number 18 could be Euclid or Archimedes, depending on what you think. I mean, because he's doing some kind of math there. Let's see, who else do we have in this painting? Number 6 is believed to be Pythagoras from ancient Greece. Number 11. Number 11 could be Leonardo da Vinci, but probably not. And what else? Anyone else we want to target here? That should about do it. All right. Now, as you know, from the Renaissance, we get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, I'm just kidding. But obviously, that's where their names came from. Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael. I have no idea which one is which, but that's where they got their names from. Okay, now let's compare some of the art from the medieval times to the Renaissance. All right? In the Middle Ages, there was no perspective, no proportion. They looked more like little kid drawings. There were many religious themes, and it shows how central religious was during that time period. During the Renaissance, however, there were everyday scenes, and the scenes were much more realistic looking. All things we already looked at. Up on the left here, you have La Pieta, which I believe you studied this year in art class, another one of Michelangelo's works. Again, everyday scenes, very realistic. These are some different Renaissance personalities. You can go ahead and look them up if you want to Google history for music lovers, and you'll get our favorite female singer, and she does a song on Leonardo da Vinci, Shakespeare, Mary Queen of Scots, Elizabeth I, Gutenberg, Henry VIII, and Anne Boleyn. And I will include these links along with the links for this flipped classroom. All right, now let's just quickly review the Renaissance. What is the Renaissance? We'll look at it from an Italian perspective and from a Northern Europe perspective. All right, what was it? A period after the Middle Ages, the start of the modern world, new interest in old stuff like Greece and Rome, a change in thought about art, religion, literature, and education. Where did it begin? It began in Italy, and it later spread north through Germany and England. The difference between Italian Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance? In Italy, they were interested in human achievement instead of religious or spiritual achievement. The figures in their artwork looked like Greek or Roman gods. They were perfect looking. In the Northern Renaissance, they were interested in the early Christian period, and the figures in their artwork were more realistic. In both, there was an interest in Greek and Roman culture, the classics, and they both used perspective in their paintings. And there was this belief in humanism. That'll do it for now. I want you to guys go ahead and check out some of the other links that I have with this flipped classroom. Have a good one.